Hey, what's going on everyone? In this review, I'll be looking at my favorite grunt suit from my favorite Gundam series. It's the RGM-79SP GM Sniper 2 from 0080 War in the Pocket. As always, I'll be reviewing this Master Grade model kit in 4 categories: the build, the appearance, the articulation, and the gimmicks. I'll give each a score from 1 to 5, so at the end I can do some math and get an average score. Hopefully this review can help you decide if you should pick up this Master Grade. Okay, now let's start with this build. With this being a 1-year war mobile suit, it naturally reuses parts from other mobile suits, specifically the inner frame from the RX-78-2 and GM 2.0s. Of course, those kits are almost a decade old, so there's a lot of modern additions sprinkled in, as well as a completely new set of armor. Bandai also decided to forego the usual ABS plastic for the inner frame and use that newer, softer plastic I mentioned in my Crossbone X3 review. It's great for nub removal because of how weak it is, but it also has a tendency to break easier. Despite being so old, the somewhat reused inner frame has a lot of the details and moving parts those 2.0 kits were known for. There's tons of details for you to paint up. I personally just added a little silver to the pistons on the arms and the ankles though. I can't really say such good things about that new armor though. I mean, it has really weird part separation and a couple more bad nubs than we're used to seeing on these newer kits. Now there is, however, a little bit of painting I'd recommend. Here's a quick rundown. You need to add gray to this section on the shoulders. There's a solid indent, so it's a really easy touch up. Amazingly, all the red details on this kit come in actual molded pieces. Unfortunately, all the gray on the inside of these vents needs to be painted though. Lastly, there are these circles found on the legs and the elbows. They come as a solid blue piece, which is how they are in the anime. However, newer interpretations of this kit have them in gray. I decided to leave the ones on the legs blue since there's some nice panel lines inside, and just paint up the ones on the elbows because they're essentially just empty holes. On a side note, this is just a nitpick, but this gray on the shoulder is supposed to be blue. Honestly, it's just going to be too much of a hassle to color match that blue, so I just skipped it. This is a strange build for me. You'd think the dated inner frame would be holding back these newer armor pieces, but it's actually the exact opposite. The 10-year-old inner frame still holds up pretty well. Meanwhile, the newer armor pieces have poor panel lining, nubs, and part separation. I'll give this kit's build a still above average 4 out of 5. I'd say it's a good 3rd or 4th Master Grade for beginners. So now that you've built this guy, what's he gonna look like? Well, with this being a newer Master Grade, he's pretty slimmed up. Not quite to Katoki levels, but compared to the line art, it's pretty noticeable. The chest specifically is much smaller than it should be. Still, I wouldn't say it's that bad, and honestly it kinda makes the kit look a bit more modern. The colors aren't quite perfect either. The greenish blue just isn't quite right. The dark blue and the red are also a little darker than I'd like, but they're close enough for me. I really like the lack of panel lines on this kit. While I wouldn't say this kit is going for that anime accurate look that I love so much, it could have been a lot worse, with only a few needless panel lines on the legs and arms. You get the usual 2 sets of decals for this kit, the first being peel and stick. It's all the caution signs as well as some really nice faction symbols. The second are dry transfer numbers and names. I love how you get 3 sets of numbers, so you can have a full MS team of these guys. Of course, I went minimalistic with them and only included the decals on the suit as it appeared in the anime. Honestly, a lot of changes on this kit seem to be in the vein of modernizing it, if that makes any sense. It's been slimmed up and the colors are darker, and there's a few extra panel lines. I'll give the appearance of this kit another 4 out of 5. Now it's time to take a look at his articulation. The feet have 2 bends in them, so this guy can find footing pretty much anywhere. The ankles are a ball joint connected to a hinge, so you don't really get much out of them except for sideways tilts. You get almost a 180-degree bend from the knee. It's held back by these large thrusters, but this is still a pretty great bend. The hips feature those newer style swivel mounts, so you get all the kicks, splits, and spins you could ask for. The waist skirts are set up just like the RX-78 2.0, so you get great movement, but they can pop out on occasion. The chest is actually a brand new build. It has a series of hinges that allow for all kinds of movement. The shoulders are a straight up copy of the RX-78 2.0, so you get this amazing 90-degree pop out. Of course, with this shoulder being so complex, it's prone to sagging over time. The arms have a 360-degree spin on top, almost a 180-degree bend from the elbow, and the wrists are on the usual ball joints. The hands use interchangeable fingers. I I really don't get why we didn't get 2.0 or 3.0 style hands here. I mean, this kit already reuses some elements from the 2.0, so you think that would have carried over too. The head is on a single ball joint, so you don't get much. Thankfully, the neck section can tilt forwards to help out a little bit. Basically, the articulation of this kit is pretty amazing. However, the complexity of some of these joints mixed with the weaker plastic I talked about in part 1 leads to this guy not feeling too sturdy. Every bend has that clicky plastic sound to it that doesn't really inspire confidence. I'll give this kit's articulation a near perfect score of 4.5 out of 5. I'm sure if this kit used a stronger ABS plastic, it would have gotten a 5. Now finally, let's take a look at his weapons. The first and most iconic weapon of this MS is its 75mm sniper rifle. It looks pretty great with a nice mix of dark green and gray. Also, thanks to a dedicated set of fingers, this guy has no problem holding this weapon up. Because of the amazing pop out from the shoulders, this guy can actually pose with his rifle as well. He also comes with a set of beam sabers. They attach to the back skirt armor, so they're always on hand, assuming you have the right set of fingers of course. Still, they look fine and they function exactly how you would expect. Next up is this massive shield. It snaps into the arm and really doesn't pose too many weight issues. The cool thing about this shield is you can actually set it on the ground and aim the rifle over top of it. Lastly, you get this machine gun. It's pretty generic looking, so I don't think you're going to use it too often. But you know, it's there if you need it. Now, if you're familiar with the more extended universe of Universal Century Gundam, then I'm sure you know there's numerous different versions of the GM Sniper 2 floating around during the 1 Year War. So naturally there's lots of weapons band I could have included in this kit. However, this is the 0080 version of this mobile suit, so I can't really blame Bandai for sticking just to that arsenal. So I'll give the gimmicks of this kit a perfect 5 out of 5. Honestly, the rifle works perfectly and that's really all I care about. Now it's time to wrap this up for an average score. The build was a 4 out of 5. The 10-year-old inner frame still holds up pretty well. Meanwhile, the brand new armor pieces are a bit of a letdown. The appearance was another 4 out of 5. This kit goes for a more modern look, and for the most part, it pulls it off. The articulation was a 4.5 out of 5. This guy can hit every pose you could think of, but the soft plastic and complex joints lead him to feeling kinda weak. The gimmicks received a perfect 5 out of 5. You get everything the 0080 version of this mobile suit needs. And of course the main gimmick, that rifle, works flawlessly. Tallying all that up and dividing, you get an average score of 4.375 out of 5. But I'd round that up to a 4.4. More accurately, it receives an 87.5%. That sounds just right to me. This is a pretty amazing master grade, but it's definitely not one of the greats. If you're into GMs or 0080 War in the Pocket, then you'll love this master grade. Hopefully this leads to more master grade GMs or maybe more 0080 suits in the future. You know, maybe that Alex 2.0 that's over 10 years overdue. Anyway, feel free to leave any questions or comments you have about this kit in the comments, and I'm more than happy to get back to you. You can also recommend more Gundams for me to review, and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for watching.